Hey y'all, long time no see. I don't even know where to begin right now, but I know that I feel like I can't upload a What's for Dinner video without some sort of intro, since it has been over like 2 months, I believe, since I have uploaded. If you are new here and this is your first video that you're watching and you really don't know anything and you're kind of in the dark about it, I'll just put a timestamp down below in the description box so that you can just fast forward and get to the recipe, since that is what this video is about. But I do know my longtime subscribers have had a lot of questions, which I completely understand. They don't offend me at all. I really do appreciate all of the comments that you guys have sent me over these last few months, all the messages that you've sent me over on Instagram, just checking in to make sure that I'm okay. I really do appreciate that more than you know. So sweet. And I'm sorry that if I haven't got back to every single one of you. I'm the type of person that when I'm going through something, I just completely shut down and block everything out. It is nothing personal whatsoever, but I am back, guys. If you want to know a little bit more, I do share more personal stuff like on Instagram. I really don't want to make this whole video about it. Like I said, this is about food and recipes and all that good stuff. Not about me, but I do just want to kind of check in, I guess you could say. But I will say a little bit without going into too many details. I will just give a little short and sweet what's been going on, because I just want to kind of explain where I've been, why I haven't uploaded, because I think you guys do deserve to know that, because I do appreciate each and every one of you and this job so much. I cannot wait to go back at this full force just like before. But I'm just gonna go right in and say it. So basically, me and Josh, we were about to go through a divorce. We signed the papers and everything, and I moved out. I moved down to that little trailer over there, but we have decided to work it out. We're doing really great. That's that. I am going to, what is today? It is June the 20th that I am filming this. At the end of the month, I am going to move back in. I do know that I made that community post saying that I was moving. This is where I moved to, like I said, but I am moving back in. I know it's a mess, it's whatever. It is what it is. I know a lot of you guys can relate, a lot of you guys can understand. So that's that. I have also recently gave in my 2 weeks notice at my full-time job, because I could not focus on doing that and YouTube on top of everything. Plus, I just want to spend more time with my kids and 1,000 more reasons, but that's what it is. But yeah, so the recipes that I am going to be sharing, I have had on my phone for a long time. I really don't even remember when I filmed them, but I did film a week's worth of recipes several weeks ago, back when it was like cold weather. But nonetheless, it was good food. It's stuff that I want to share with you guys, and since I filmed it, I'm not going to let that go to waste. So I am going to edit that and upload it into this video, and then going forward, I did film 2 recipes at this place. Either way, that'll go in the next video. But what I'm trying to say is I'm going to get this old footage out, and then I am getting back in my original kitchen, and I am going to start making all the summer recipes. And I'm just so excited. Since I have lived here, I have not cooked near as much. Did y'all just see that? Do not. Seriously. I can't. I'm just saying, I'm excited to get back to doing what I love, and knowing that I get to go back at this full time excites me more than you guys even know. So I hope you guys are ready, and I'm just gonna quit talking now. I believe this intro is long enough, but yeah, let's get into the recipes. Okay, so first up, we are doing a classic staple, and that is soup beans. I'm doing them in the Instant Pot. I have just added in about a cup of water to the bottom, and then I'm taking a small package of country ham, and I'm just going to add that on in. I do have it on the saute function so that it can kind of boil, and I'm going to let that go for about 5 minutes. I have also added in about a tablespoon of butter, and I'm just going to season that generously with some salt and some onion powder. You could, of course, use real onion if you wanted to, but y'all know me. So I'm also going to take about a half a pound of pinto beans that I have washed and picked through, and then I am just going to add in some water. I don't remember the exact measurement, but then I'm going to add in lots of black pepper, and that is it. I'm just going to give that a quick little stir. Then I'm going to pop the top on and make sure that that is set to sealing, and I am going to cook that for 40 minutes. Once the 40 minutes is up, this is what it looks like. I like the liquid to be a little bit thicker, so I turn that back onto saute to bring it up to a boil, and I let that go for an additional 10 to 15 minutes, I'd say, and that will help thicken it a little. So here is the finished product. How good does that look? Always a favorite. And I just served that with some leftover cornbread, and then I sauteed up some fresh spinach with some minced garlic, and then just a side of corn. This is a good soup bean recipe, but my dad's is always better, so I'm always slightly disappointed when I make mine, but hopefully I can make mine just like his one day. Up next, we are doing breakfast for dinner, so I started off by making some homemade biscuits. So to my food processor, I'm adding in 2 cups of just some plain all-purpose flour. I am also going to be adding in some baking powder. Anytime I follow a recipe, I always leave a link to it down below in the description box so that you can click on that and get the exact measurements. I also added in some salt, and then you are going to need a whole stick of some butter. I'm just cubing that up with a butter knife and tossing that on in. It is key to have cold butter. That is what makes really good biscuits. And the reason that I'm using a food processor is that so that I can cut it into the flour a lot easier. But if you don't have a food processor, you could just do a bowl and use a fork to cut it in, or if you have a pastry blender, that would work as well. But this is what I found works for me. Like I said, it does take a lot of time out of it. You want it to resemble fine little crumbs like this. I'm just adding that to a small mixing bowl. And then I'm going to take some buttermilk, and I'm going to add in about a cup of that. Then I'm going to take out my wooden spoon, and I'm just going to mix that just until it comes together, until I can pour it out onto a big piece of parchment paper that I have laid out onto my countertop that has been really well floured, and I'm just going to knead that. Something that I have learned through trial and error is you definitely don't want to roll this dough out too thin, or you are going to have some flat biscuits, and nobody wants that. So as you can see, I leave it pretty thick, and then I just take a mason jar to cut the perfect biscuit. Works every time. They might get stuck the first couple of times, but just give it a good little beating and it'll plop right on out. And I'm just going to repeat that until all of that dough is gone, and I'm just placing it onto a greased foil-lined cookie sheet, and that's going to go in the oven at 450 degrees for about 10 to 12 minutes. Up next, we are going to fry up some potatoes. I normally don't do this with like red potatoes, but that's what I had on hand in my pantry, and they needed to be used. So I'm just dicing those up into bite-sized little pieces, and I am going to heat up some olive oil into my skillet. I'm also going to toss in some butter to melt with that. Enjoy this bad angle with me dancing and some dirty dishes in the background, but it's okay. So, like I said, I'm adding in that butter, and then I'm going to toss in all of those potatoes, and then we are going to season it up. So I'm using this garlic sea salt. That is one of my favorite seasonings. I use it on a lot of things. I'm also going to add in a lot of black pepper, and then some Trader Joe's 21 seasoning salute. I think that was my first time doing that with like fried potatoes, and I really loved the flavor. So I'm just going to stir that really good to make sure that every little piece of potato gets coated perfectly. Then I'm going to pop a top on, and I'm just going to let that cook away until they are perfectly tender. Next, I whipped out my big cast iron skillet that so badly needs to be re-seasoned, but I just added in a little bit of vegetable oil, and I'm laying down some of this thinly sliced country ham, the same kind that I used in the soup beans a few days prior. This is my first time ever cooking it like this, believe it or not, and let's just say I got them a little crispy. They were pretty hard, but we did still enjoy them, really enjoy the flavor. I just cooked those for maybe 4 to 5 minutes on each side, I believe. And then up next, I'm just whipping up some scrambled eggs. I did add in some freshly torn up spinach, I guess you'd say, but yeah, I'm not going to talk much on that because it's just eggs. This meal was amazing. I absolutely love having breakfast for dinner. Those potatoes were my favorite part of the plate. They were seasoned so good and cooked so perfectly. And then for my eggs, I drizzled them with some hot sauce. I have one biscuit with grape jelly and the other biscuit with that rock hard country ham, but still, winner, winner. Y'all are going to want to pay close attention to this recipe because it is one of the best things that has gone down in my kitchen. It's a chicken and dumpling casserole. This was my first time that I made it. So I started off by cooking up 3 chicken breasts. I just cooked it in the crock pot on high for 2 hours. I seasoned it really well with a little bit of chicken broth in the bottom. And then as you saw, I removed that to this small little mixing bowl. And then I'm just taking that meat chopper and I'm just going to town on it to really break that up. And then I am going to whip out one of my favorite casserole dishes, and I'm adding about a half a stick of butter, and I'm just going to let that preheat with the oven. I believe it was on 350. If I'm wrong, I'll put it in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. So while that was in the oven melting, I went ahead and got started on the dumpling part. So I'm just adding in some plain all-purpose flour. I'm also adding in some buttermilk. I think this is what really made this recipe so good. I'm also going to be adding in some baking powder. Once again, exact measurements in the description box. And then I'm adding in, I'm really not sure what that was, to tell you the truth. I'm just going to whisk that together with a whisk. And I had to add in quite a bit more buttermilk than what the recipe called for because it needs to be like pourable, almost like pancake batter. So once I finally got it to the way I wanted it, I got started assembling this. So once that butter was melted, I just added that chicken to the bottom and evenly spread that out. And then I took that batter mixture and I'm just going to pour that evenly over the chicken. And then to that same bowl that I chopped the chicken up in and just washed out, I'm going to be adding in 2 cups of chicken broth, and then I'm going to add in 1 can of cream of chicken soup, and I'm just going to whisk that together really well until it is mostly lump free. And then I'm just going to take that and pour that all over the top, and that is it. That is going to go into the oven. I want to say an hour. I'm probably wrong. Once again, if I am, I'll put it in the left-hand corner of the screen. So here's what it looks like when it comes out. It ain't cute, but let me tell you, it's bomb. For one of the sides that I'm going to pair that casserole with, I'm doing some fresh green beans in the Instant Pot. So I just cut those down into bite-sized pieces, wash them really well, and then I'm just adding in some chicken broth. I also tossed in about a tablespoon of butter, and then I'm seasoning those really well with lots of salt and black pepper. And then for the last ingredient, a true southern staple, some bacon grease. That's going to add a ton of flavor to these and make them just perfect. So I'm going to pop my top on. Again, always make sure it's set to ceiling, and then I'm going to set my timer for 25 minutes. And this is what they are going to look like. We really like them cooked down where they are pretty tender, kind of resembles like the canned green beans. But my kids devoured these. I didn't think they would, but they did. They loved them. We all did. So here is everything all tied together. I have those chicken and dumplings. I just topped it with some black pepper and some parsley. And then we have the green beans, some cooked carrots, and just some boxed mac and cheese. So, so good. Next up, I'm making a Kentucky hot brown pizza. So I started off by making the dough. I did the Greek yogurt dough that is just 2 ingredients, some Greek yogurt and some self-rising flour. Just formed that into a ball, and then I took some vegetable oil spray and just sprayed that pizza pan really well. And then I got started on this, just rolling it out the best that I could. I put this together on my 30-minute lunch break, so I did not have a lot of time to fool with this. So that pizza crust, it's looking ugly. I was aggravated, but it's okay. So now I'm going to get started on the white pizza sauce. So I'm just melting some butter, adding in a big spoonful of minced garlic and letting that cook for about a minute or 2. And then I'm going to start adding in a couple tablespoons of flour. And then I am going to whisk that together. It's going to get really clumpy looking just like that, but that's fine. That is normal. Then I'm going to start slowly adding in some heavy whipping cream. It took me forever to get this sauce right. I was getting really aggravated. I thought this was not going to work out. I thought I was going to have to toss it. As you can see, it was looking like mashed potatoes. So I had to add in lots of milk to thin it out. Here it is looking like some goop. That's what I would call it. But I promise, guys, I made it work and it did taste really good. As you can see, I got it to the right consistency finally. And once I did, I just took that off the heat. And then I can't help but laugh, y'all. I was such a mess trying to do this on my lunch break. Anyways, I added in some salt, pepper, and some Parmesan cheese that I freshly shredded up. And I'm just going to let that melt together for about a minute and it is done. I'm just going to take that and spread that over top of my dough and add my toppings, which is just some cheese, tomatoes, ham, and bacon. The struggle was worth it, y'all, because this pizza came out delicious. It was great leftovers, and it was just a fun way to switch up our normal pizza night from like our normal pepperoni pizza. And then I just served it with a simple side salad, lettuce, carrots, tomato, and Olive Garden dressing. For the last meal idea, I am making some bourbon chicken for the first time, so I'm starting off with these boneless, skinless chicken thighs. These were extremely hard to find with the meat shortage going on, so I was super thankful when I finally did find these, but I'm just chopping that up into bite-sized pieces. I whipped out my large skillet, and I'm heating up some olive oil. Once that was hot, I dumped on in my chicken, and I'm just going to spread that out evenly, and I'm going to let that cook away. Meanwhile, I whipped up the sauce, so all that is some soy sauce. I do highly recommend getting the low sodium because this was a little bit too salty for that large of an amount. You'll also need some bourbon, of course. I'm using some Woodford Reserve, and I'll just go ahead and tell you now, you may want to cut this in half if you are like me. And then I'm also going to add in some packed light brown sugar, followed by some water. You'll need some rice vinegar, about a tablespoon of that. You'll also need some ground ginger, or you could use some fresh if you were fancy like that. You'll also need some black pepper and then some garlic powder. And that is it. I'm just whisking that together, really making sure that I break up the brown sugar. And I'm going to pour that over top of that fully cooked chicken. And I'm just going to bring that up to a boil, and I'm going to let that simmer away for about 15 minutes. I did set a timer just to make sure, because I really wanted to be sure that I cooked out the alcohol. So lastly, once that timer was up, I added in a cornstarch slurry, and that instantly thickened it. As you can see, it coated the chicken perfectly. It was such a nice color. I thought it looked really nice. To pair with it, I'm going to be making some fried rice. So I pulled out my wok and I heated up some oil in it. And then I'm going to be using this yellow rice that's already seasoned. I cooked it the day prior and then just let it sit overnight in the fridge to get cold, and then dumped it in just like that. I really do think it's key to use cold rice when you're making fried rice, because I just think it gives it a better texture compared to if you dumped it in hot, because I did that once before and it just turned out to be really mushy. So I use this fried rice seasoning mix that I found at Save-A-Lot. This was my first time using it. I was worried that this was going to be way too salty, but it wasn't. Also added in a little bit of soy sauce and just tossed that around. Then I'm going to crack in a few eggs, and I'm just going to quickly scramble those up. Then I'm going to incorporate that into the rice and just let everything kind of continue to heat through. Then lastly, I took a bag of frozen broccoli. I just steamed it in the microwave and then dumped it in. I took my spatula to kind of try to break it up into smaller pieces, and it was done. So here it is all put together. That chicken was really good, but it was pretty strong on the bourbon, at least too strong for me, so that's why I said cut it in half. But that fried rice, highly recommend. That's probably the best that I've ever made. But that wraps up this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next one.